I have to say I'm really honored that Roberto Minervini is here with us. You probably know that we had a special tribute section dedicated to his work in 2020, but unfortunately, just a few days before the festival, the cinemas were closed, there was a lockdown and pandemic all around us. So we moved to online space, and we could meet there with Roberto and we could watch films, but it's much better to meet in physical life and to watch films on big screens and meet the directors and discover their minds and go really deeper in things. And you know, Roberto's work is something what's for me like master of contemporary cinema. It's really, he's going much farther than we can follow. And it's interesting to see how he's blurring the lines between documentary and fiction. And he's pretending something but doing something else. What's smart, and that opens the ways how we can read films and how also these films somehow work in longer term perspective. So I'm very happy Roberto Minervini is here with us, and the masterclass will be moderated by Vít Janeček, the Czech filmmaker, but also producer, film critic, teacher at university, sorry, and also now man behind the cinema in Prague. So really like Vít is also doing almost everything for cinema to keep it alive and connect it to people and create a community which is really responsible for our days. So Roberto Minervini and Vít Janeček, welcome.
So good afternoon or good evening. It's great that you came in person. When I was preparing for this your masterclass, I realized what Marek mentioned, that in 2020 you were already present in Ji.hlava in online space, and you actually made a great masterclass with Marek, which I invite you all to watch it. It's online on Ji.hlava's festival, and it's actually 2 hours long, very in-depth kind of drawing into your film chronologically, step by step. Marek took a lot of excerpts and you were commenting on it, on the method, and I was just thinking, because it already happened in Ji.hlava, that we should go somehow the different directions, because, or not, maybe we can go back as well, but also for you, not to repeat it. I took also a couple of remarks, but what is interesting that you are Italian American filmmaker, not making films in the States, but you were not born in the States. There is a huge community of Italians in United States. There is a huge tradition of Italian born in United States filmmakers, not only in Hollywood, etc. But you started your filmmaking in the States, basically on the academic track. Can we go to the roots, maybe first biographically, what happened with you in Italy? And what happens that you started to make films basically in the United States when you left Italy?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. A lot of things happened. Life has been quite a ride. I left Italy just because I needed to find a job. So in a way, that's what makes me just your average Italian who has to go, you know, and family can provide, and has to go look for jobs, can't find jobs in this region, and decides, you know what, instead of going to the big city, I'm going abroad. And I land in Madrid, Spain, find a job at the Italian Chamber of Commerce in Madrid, like put on a suit and a tie and start working. And that was it for me. You know, life is set. I have a job, I have an income, and now I can do what I want. And what I wanted was music. I was a punk rock singer. And so... And that was set. So life has been always, you know, this kind of, short-term planning and not knowing what will come next. So then I fell in love, not with the arts, with a woman. And I moved to the US. So again, suit and tie, I looked for another job. I worked there, lost the job. And then and then replanned. So in Italy, what happened is I come from a family of one aspiring artists. So people were blue collar. My mom she's the highest. She held the highest education title in the family. She completed high school, and she was a secretary, but she painted. And my dad, who actually, had a middle schooler, and he wanted to act. He had a comedic veins, and they had an amateur theater company, what you could call community college. They would be, would do stuff, and I would just, I was the firstborn, 2 kids, so I would always be with them. And so my parents thought, this is what we do, and we're broke, so you're not going to do this. You're going to study computer programming, and then you're going to study economics. And I was stomping my feet. So this is not. Looks like a lot of fun. Everybody is, in an altered state of mind in my house, and everybody was using and abusing. And why do I need to go in computer? So, but I did. So in the end, for a series of coincidences in America, I just, pulled the trigger and got a master's in media studies and pursued academia, and made a first film, which was more of my own, diary or my own experiential first step into something experiential. So the reason why I made films is because I wanted something a little more tangible, a little more tactile than theory, and I think this is where I'm going to stop answering this question, because the tactile aspect, the going through the experience as a complement, as a key complement from understanding, knowing something about the experience, so touching firsthand versus knowing about it, is key in everything I do. So that's a little bit of my, bypassing a lot of stuff that can be just, can be titillating, but we don't need to say it now. But yeah, that's my excursus from a small village in Italy all the way to the bright lights of New York City.
But it happened in Texas first time, was it? This media school was in Texas, which is not...
No, it was in New York. I moved to New York first, and I was an IT consultant. Mm-hmm. Then again, this, I've said it many times, so maybe some people Google and they already know, but, it sounds a little bit like it's something very, I don't know, it's quite unique, right? So my clients died in the Twin Towers, and I got compensated as a victim of September 11, and I paid a master's in media studies in New York City at the New School. Mm-hmm. Then I moved to pursue academia. I enrolled in a PhD in cinema history in Spain, and I moved to the Philippines by choice to teach film. Then my mother-in-law when she got ill with cancer, I quit filmmaking. I moved to Texas, and I started real estate, a green, eco-friendly building company. So I quit again. I quit filmmaking, and so I started doing what I always did: put back the suit back, the tie back, and start working again. And then I stayed. I made films. I made children, and why am I putting together? I don't know, because they overlapped. Because being fathering films and fathering children I can draw some parallelisms into that. So anyway, then I stayed in Texas for 14 years until 3 years ago. And I made 5 films.
Yeah, I still, because maybe it seems that we are still far from your films, but as you said in the bar, that you want to inspire also, or your producer with you said that you want to inspire young people also how to make films, etc., where we will get definitely also in detail. But also your career is very encouraging in that sense, that it's in a way very untypical for this time, because in the 60s, when media were writing about young debut filmmaker it was someone around 40 years, usually 40, 45, who was just making her first film in this more or less age, and then just continuing some filmmaking career. While nowadays we live in this context of film schools, etc., where people start in the 20, and if they are 25 and they are not accepted to film schools, they might think it's over and we must do something else. But in your case, it's really that you did a lot of things, and you end up with cinema, and it's okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's exactly, and I could stop making films and it's okay, but this is not just words in the sense that everything has a, you know, everything's, no, I'm not going to say everything has a beginning as an end. I'm trying to say, you know, to stay engaged, I want to stay engaged with whatever I do until it makes sense. And making sense is a complex matter, okay? Because it doesn't have to make sense only for me, but it has to make sense of people, you know, that are affected by what I do. When I worked, it made sense because, you know, me making good money affected positively, in part, people around me. And negatively because of the time that it eroded, you know, working 12 hours a day, being in an office 12 hours a day, took away from my family. And same with film. Film has gotten different. You know, there's you know, a few tenths, you know, of people here, maybe 80 or so. You know, every time is this, and I feel that heightens the sense of accountability. People hold me accountable. I hold my sons accountable. I have a responsibility. I'm putting things out there, and this is not a joke, right? Although the engagement we have with cinema is changing, it's not what it used to be, but yet, you know, I feel a great sense of responsibility, and I'll do this until it makes sense. I started late. I'm a late starter, and some others are early starters. It's a path I don't know. I don't know what it means to be 20 and already feel that you could follow your heart. I know as a father that's what I'm trying to teach my teenage kids, that they can afford to follow in your heart. But with that comes also responsibility. I see it this way. The paradigm of, you know, making a choice and holding oneself accountable for the choice is ageless. And I think, although it varies, it is something that it must be, in the way I see it, a starting point for everyone, engaging in something that has repercussions, huge repercussions on everyone else. Making a film has huge repercussions. A film has a political soul, has a political essence. A film pontificates, a film preaches. And no matter the age, youth doesn't excuse lack of responsibility. What is responsibility? Doing due diligence, understanding your place in history, understanding what came before, what could come after, understanding what your peers do, and understanding that I think artistically, it is like Marek graciously introduced me. I don't know, I can't say if it's true, but what I can say, it is true that I feel a sense of responsibility of seeking, getting out of the comfort zone, triggering new debates, because otherwise, you know, an artist cannot be resting in the comfort, you know, soft pillows of the status quo.
So if we follow exploring these untypical elements, Texas is not also the place where usually films are, it's not the mecca of filmmaking in the United States. Yeah? I would say if you look around the country, probably you could even omit it if you think about cinema. Can you say something?
Sure. Texas is the mecca of baseball pitchers. People are really big. I mean, I look like a miniature man in there. Not to mention that I'm crossing my legs, and that's not even, doesn't even qualify as man in Texas. So, you know, I should be, you know, with a crotchet full display, which I won't be doing here, but I would in Texas. Anyway, but Texas, yes, exactly. So it's not just Texas, it's Houston, Texas, the city of oil. I just said that I had this brilliant idea of starting. I was the first eco-friendly home builder in the city of Oil, and I won more award as an eco-friendly home builder than I won award in my filmmaking career. I can brag more about that, but that was the intention. If when I started working on and it's a little digression, but I'll go back to cinema. When I started building homes, this was the mortgage crisis. I could have become a mega multimillionaire by just buying those cheap homes that the banks were begging builders to buy, and then immediately flip them for just a little profit, a few tens of thousands of dollars each home. When you have 200 of those, there you have it. A good life. But that is status quo. I'm not even judging it. Okay, everybody has a path, but I just mention accountability. So I need to look at myself in the mirror. So this is not. I do believe that artistry is what is being an artist. An artist creates and challenges. So you don't need to be an art to do art to make art to be an artist. So if I want to be a home builder in the city of Oil, where they're fracking the hell out of the terrain and they're buying, homes where people defaulted a mortgage, and they're usually from some ethnical strata of society, non-white. So the least I could do is go the other way. So I tried being an eco-friendly builder. I started losing some money, and then things went well. So, and now I'm going back to film. I'm in Texas. Austin is the capital of cinema. No, I don't want to be there. I want to be Houston, Texas, which is the gateway to what we know as Texas, where there was a huge debate around open carry, for example. Right? Open carry means the policy for which you could carry a gun anywhere at any time on display, not concealed, right? I could carry it like this. So, and that's where I wanted to be. And then challenge the status quo also meant if we want to stir a political debate, what's going on in America? The typical question. America is not. Well, then I need to go what we could call the front line and start working on the idiosyncrasies of America, on the contradiction of America. And so that's what I did. And so, yes, Texas is not the hotbed or the mecca of filmmaking, because if you want to go there, you cannot just kneel down and pray. You have to stand up and start doing things in a way that that feel extremely uncomfortable. I've been confronted by armed people, questioning my motives of being there. That is not really something that is desirable for a filmmaker, but it is part of challenging the comfort zone, really, at least for me.
When we come to your film, to your films, there is the passage, basically, which is rooted there in Texas, except of your shorts. Before, in Europe, in comparison to the States, it's much easier to make films in terms of producing. You have many funds, you have a lot of state support. How comes you start like this in a place like Texas? You as a foreigner coming there, basically a couple of years before that.
Yeah, I wasn't in Europe. Nobody was going to give me money for a film, and that's that. That was it. It took me 7 seconds to come to a conclusion. Like if you want to make a film, and I am a very practical person. I don't look back. Then I don't waste too much time. So that's that. Therefore, there's only one way. Shooting with nothing. And so I had a colleague from the Philippines, a few former students, those who I offered them, a place to sleep with me. And we embarked on a journey, on a road trip, and I wrote a screenplay, which I then ditched, and we shot a film for nothing. And then I continued. I did that for my first 3 films. I think, and I'm very happy I did, because obviously with lack of commitment, lack of with the lack of partners, let's say, or people who are invested in this process, comes a little less pressure, or incredible less amount of pressure. So for me, it was total freedom, total creative freedom. I did and undid whatever I wanted to do. And yeah, if anybody young would be interested in asking for my opinion, it's like the best thing that could happen is nobody gives you a penny for the first film just because you don't know it to anybody. Because you can be free to express, and in the end that pays off, because I ended up landing on with these films on fairly prestigious spotlights, namely the Venice Film Festival, the Cannes Film Festival, and I did it with films that were made for pennies, and that's it. So why in America? I think it would have been the same in Europe. I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
Also, we met with Paolo, my Italian main producer. We met later on through my work. But also, I am built for that. I left Italy. I just, I just learn everything I do experientially. I went through situation. I dove a lot. I dived first, without a safety net, and it suits me. It excites me. So I was happy to start with nothing. I was happy to make film like that completely freely, and I was always very excited to try to break rules, to push a boundary. So that suits me. We're not all built the same, and that's the beauty of it. I am kind of representative of that kind of approach, for which I question the status quo. I don't take anything at face value. I owe this to my mom. My mom was a feisty little woman who questioned everything. So that's my path, and to be broke in the beginning was perfect for me. It stimulated me.
Were you also following, for example, independent cinema tradition in States, especially in the 90s, where there was a big boom, maybe 10, 20 years ago, where basically this pattern that people were creating, just like a bunch of actors to director, each of them became kind of shareholder in this film, and if it made some money, they just shared, and it somehow it was a kind of community, both making and community very much connected together.
I did follow. The problem for me is that then you could see that was used, and it still is used. You see a lot of independent voices arising. That was used, and I shouldn't even call it a problem. It's just the issue, or the fact, was that was used as a landing, as a trampoline to that finally end up in the system and make systemic films, and with widely, very well, profusely financed films in the studio films. I didn't want to do that because I continue to cherish and enjoy and have a lot of fun with and thrive in the complete independent mind. Independence is not just lack of dependence. Independence is the freedom to swim against the wave. So the problem in U.S. cinema, independent U.S. cinema, is you can do you can be creative in creating a model, creative in building up a model that does not depend from the system, namely the studio system, but you're not so free in going against it, or breaking down of the paradigms of how to make cinema, which subjects to represent, what political messages do you want to challenge or tackle or embrace. But that is the independence. Independence is in the spirit and in the mind. Independence is an ideological, a philosophical concept. It is not a practice. It's not a methodological process. Methodological and production independence, it's easy to achieve. But philosophical and ideological, therefore political independence, and to stay with that, that's a little more complicated. And I love that very much, very, very much. I care about that more than I could possibly express.
Mm-hmm. But if we still a little bit follow your biography, after 12 years in Texas, what happened?
It happened that Then my kids, became a little older, and then you are in Texas. Then you realize that, I could have continued doing my own, my own work and hanging out in the places I wanted to hang out. But then a few things happened. One is the advent of Donald Trump, which created... Donald Trump came because of the political polarization of America, but he enhanced that, okay? He legislated over the polarization, okay? He made it into law. We have a legislative apparatus, the Supreme Court, which continues to make political decisions, okay? So first, there's Donald Trump. Things have changed. Texas is at the forefront of this kind of, polarizing politics. Now, that has an effect on everybody, a little bit less on me in the sense that, I continue to, go to the supermarket and drive my car around, but my kids were going to school and were being educated. And the curriculum they were studying was becoming very controversial, in terms of religious education, in terms of racial education. And my kids are not white, they're not for the mixed race. And the third thing is, gun violence. I mean, there's been a shootout in their school, and when a student killed another one, and I had to experience as a father the lockdown, and I thought, this is perhaps not where I should be raising my children. So I went back to, the only place in America that doesn't feel like America, which is New York City. Yeah, and I live in Brooklyn now. Yeah.
So you remain, but still, since that, or since which film suddenly you started to communicate more with Europe and co-produce with Europe? How it happened?
It happened thanks to the Cannes Film Festival, I have to say. It was 2013. I was there with Stop the Bonding Heart. And when I sat down in the middle of the screening room, I realized that a lot of the institutional Italy was there. I left Italy, again, blue-collar background. I knew nobody. And all of a sudden, I'm back now. I'm actually not back to Italy. My Italian was so rusty. And I sit there, and all of a sudden, I have people introducing themselves from the Ministry of Culture, from institutions. So all of a sudden, there's this kind of... I enjoyed it very much. Like, it's so surreal. And people from TV, I say, oh my God, you're 25 years older, you don't look good at all anymore. And so all of a sudden I'm back into a certain Italy that I never had access to. And that was it. I wasn't fazed by that. But then a friend of mine, a film critic and radio host, befriended me just because he liked my work. And then he told me that there were people in Italy. They were also trying to challenge the status quo. They were not, working systemically. There's a few good ones. So I got introduced to Paolo Benzi, Octafilm, and I think we connected because of a similar path in a way, but a similar vision of what it means, or the responsibility of being an outsider, right? Responsibility of being. Or challenging the status quo, which is a word that I repeat, that I use ad infinitum just because it means a lot, right? I always had the status quo here so that I know where to go, whatever I do next. And Paolo shared this view, and so that's how I really got connected with Italy.
I wanted to say in the beginning, we will get to the questions, but if any of you have some questions during this session, please go ahead. Yeah, I forget to say that in the beginning. So just raise your hand, and there is someone with the microphone, and we cannot be only with us. But the plan is that we will talk for a while together, and then it's open, but it can be also interrupted. Just technical remark. And let's go back to films. It's just if I'm not wrong, just today the Damned is shown here in cinema later tonight, which is your last film, and also it was interesting that the masterclass you did with Marek these four years ago the debate was coming back to the situation before elections. Yeah? It was before presidential elections, and it was a kind of tense time if Trump is going to continue, and we are 4 years back, and basically we are in the same situation, and you came here with the film, which is basically rooted in a kind of suburbs of civil war in the States, somewhere in 19th century. The film the film takes place with one troop of Unionist army of volunteers, which is a specific phenomenon as well. Can you maybe say you started to work because it's 24, so probably 2, 3, 4 years of work, probably digging of also historical archives, etc. But at the same time, it still follows your method. But you are written there as a screenwriter, but there's no script, as I understood from your other interviews. Can you say about this film, because each of you have a chance to watch it? So maybe we can start, unlike Marek did chronologically, we can go a little bit from the other side, and it's really actual because each of you can go to theater today and watch it.
Oh, a lot happened since Trump came. I mean, there's a lot to say. There's a lot. There will be a lot to say. I'll try to be concise to the best of my ability. But first, I had to kind of take a step back and say, you know, what Trump did, and that is indelible. It's he redefined truth, the concept of truth, right? Truth is, I mean, he borrowed that from his mentors. I mean, there's interesting interviews in the early 90s with Trump when he says the truth is basically what you believe. People will believe. If you insist that this is true, people will just believe it. And then, but Trump did not invent that. Let's think about the way the American population, American public opinion reacts towards institutions. It is a well-known fact that the average American, or the majority of Americans, have a distrust for the institution. That is also engraved in the independent, you know, essence and soul of America and the way it was built. So there is a distrust, fearing that there could be a super partes control, you know, an institution controlling the freedom of the average American. And yet, the same American who's distrustful of institutions has blind faith when it comes to foreign policy, and in this specifics, war policy. This is something that you cannot question the government about in public. There is always a good cause for war. There's always a good reason for an American soldier to die. And there is always an enemy that deserves to be eradicated for the well-being of fellow Americans. This is something that there is unpatriotic to challenge. So all of a sudden, you know, there is a fertile ground for Trump to say, you know, just like as the government as the government creates enemies so that it keeps the war economy alive and says, this is a just war. This is an evil enemy. We need to eradicate evil, and people trust it. The same institution they never trust. Trump could do the same thing and say, this is the truth. This country is becoming socialist. People are taking away your freedoms. Everything that you know of will disappear. You just have to trust that. Biden likes children. Everything could be thrown at American people, because there is a tendency to trust the government, and the government flexes muscle. So there is the muscular aspect of politics. When politics become muscular and conflictive, the Americans feel empowered. Okay, now this is a big digression, but it's important. Why is it important? Because I'm a documentary filmmaker at the time. I was a documentary filmmaker, and I found it very, very uncomfortable, the fact that people might take my films as the truth, whereas my films and the films of any documentary filmmaker that has ever made a documentary are only a testament of their own subjective experience. There's nothing objective in a documentary. It cannot be. by definition, by its own nature, is subject. That's the democracy documentary. Everybody can express a personal voice. Or no. We could make the same documentary of the same topic, because subjectivity is inherent to democracy. So all of a sudden, I'm making a documentary. People take what I say or discuss what I say in terms of truth. There's always something absolute about a documentary. And I see colleagues doing that and enjoying the power that comes from being recognized as a truth deliverer. That sounds like power to me. Sounds like political power, too much political power. Therefore, here I am now, finally coming to the end of this answer. I quit. And I start thinking, if that's the status quo, delivering something as the absolute truth, going through towards striving for absolutism, and I don't like it. Perhaps I had to start from a premise that is fake, that is fictional, and then see through the facade of fiction, what can I deliver as truth? You know, but the truth has to come from people who watch the film, not from me. And that's why I changed the way I make films. Now I'm delivering something, everybody who's paying to watch this film or downloading it on torrents, which is already available, I checked, and I downloaded it. And because I didn't have it, because my producers keep changing the passwords. Well, serious anecdote. They keep on changing the passwords because so nobody can download it. But it's like, yeah, but I cannot even download it. And my producers are in Italy, and I need to text them, and maybe I need it at night, and they're sleeping. To hell with it. You know, I'm going to torrents and I download it at 4 gigabyte 50, because I still remember 4.54 gigabytes, perfect with Italian subtitles. I downloaded it. Closing this parenthesis was just anecdotal, but you know, fun to share. And what was I saying? I enjoyed this anecdote so much because I thought maybe it would stir you up, but
fiction from documentary.
Right, yeah, I moved to, yeah, there's a fictional aspect. I don't know what I was saying, but that's, anyway, it doesn't matter. Because, but the point is, what matters is that I started working on something, you know, the difference with fiction is, I am already stating that nothing of it is absolutely true. You already know. Yeah, I was saying if you pay the ticket of the torrent. Yeah, you already know. You come in predisposed to not to absorb this as the truth. I know I will not preach and pontificate and brainwash. Now, are you seeing anything? Can you make your own digressions and see something that resembles something that resonates for you truthful? Hence the subjectivity of the experience. But if I come here with something that feels like something higher, a higher truth, subjectivity, the value that is a treasure to our democracy of subjectivity dissipates. And I don't care whether I think that I'm doing it for, you know, for a better good. I don't like to brainwash. I don't like to pontificate.
And if we go a little bit in detail into the film, which of course I don't want to make some spoiler, but still we spent maybe nearly 2 hours with soldiers of one part of the army. Then there is some small contact with the enemy, which we never see, and basically we just contemplate this situation of being in a war for people who are getting closer and closer to each other across generations. Basically, they are becoming community because you see how this troop being lost, more and more lost in the vast space where, which is hostile and not known. Yeah, it's a situation. What happens probably in communities which end up with such a hatred, like nowadays America? Is it also your statement to some kind of what happens in the States, that you are in the beyond the horizon? There is some your neighbor within the same country, but still.
Something can be said about that. If people you haven't seen the films, first of all, please, do it for the festival. Do not download the film between now and the screening. Please, just go to the screening. Just don't download it, pirate it later. No, go to the screening. But apart from that, yes. So the film is built on this premise. It is soldiers at war, deployed on a land where the civil war is at the margin. Only a few scuffles have happened. And they're waiting for the inevitable to happen at some point, and the inevitable is a battle. So the way I approach the film is the way I just presented to you all. The film will start with a journey, will settle down, and then there will be an ambush. And what happens after? Now, we already disclosed the fact that the enemy is invisible. It's hard to see. And the question is whether there is a, kind of a signifier of the inner conflict of America. Well, yes, in a way, it's more explicit than it sounds, because this is, and that's why I'm in the Civil War. That's why I'm in the 1860s, where America, for reasons that I'm not going to talk about right now, but a civil war, an inner war starts. This is a time where the officers came from the same academy. People were friends, and there are so many pictures that are very poignant of friends, a prisoner, and somebody who was captive, and the antagonist taking the last picture together, in memory of all times. And when the war ends, very few days later, the General Lee and General Grant sit down, shaking hands, which is something that resembles modern, contemporary times, saying, "Look, we fought hard, but we are the same country now. We, bury the hatches, not a problem. Now we are united." So that says a lot about how avoidable the war could have been. But again, we can talk maybe if you want to, only if you want to. But what I'm trying to say is, it was clear from the beginning that Americans were going to kill each other. So not showing the enemy doesn't hide the fact that this was a kind of a cancerous war that had metastasized, that was going to kill a lot of fellow Americans, and that's what happened. So we know the gravity of it, and we knew, us who created the film knew the gravity of it. America hasn't experienced a lot of war, hasn't war on their soil, and that's what people say. But there have been a lot of fratricide wars against the Native Americans 13 years, 11 years later. The government violated the treaties and killed Americans who happened to be Native, but they were Americans nonetheless. And it's something extremely, that deserves a serious consideration. So yeah, hiding an enemy is both a political choice. You need an enemy to justify war. Okay, and that is profusely done throughout the whole war movie genre. So I say, if I make a film about war, there will be no identification of the enemy, so that there is no clear, just cause for war. Okay, number one. Number two, this is a fratricide war, and that whomever is hiding, and whomever it will be another American person, and that is something that American history carries the burden of that fratricide war.
In terms of style of this film, but also in your previous film, I read a couple of references, reviews of your film when you released it in the spring, and basically nearly everyone somehow refers to your documentary work, and probably what connects it mostly is the camera, and the essence of the camera, not in terms of but the way you are watching at the characters, that you are always very close to, physically close to the characters, which builds your style. Also, some people write about naturalism and this kind of. Can you speak a little bit about this? Yeah. Maybe even including technical aspects, which lenses you are using for.
I will. I'm going to. So the way I always started a film, including this one that is, it's more of a fiction film, is I think of making a film as a space, or a perimeter, this space. And I think I think of a film in something in physical terms, okay, something tangible, because actually that's what we're going to do. I'm going to operate physically in order to make a film. So the film is a space. Film what I make is a space, and in the space there are elements. There is a place. There are external factors, forces, from climate to light to. There is language, and there are people. So people inhabit the space, and this is the experience. Okay, it could be a documentary or a fiction. It doesn't matter. This is something artificial that has been created ad hoc for the goal of making a film. Whether it's a documentary or not, documentary subjects and filmmakers usually inhabit this space only for the time of the shoot, a little bit before, a little bit later, and then they'll depart. The confines, the perimeter will be erased. There's no more space. And that's why I was talking about the subjective nature of a documentary. I did the same for this fiction film. I inherited my experience. I inherit my beliefs and my conclusions around experiential cinema, and I draw another space. In this case, the space is the Valley of Helena, Montana. I bring in people, and I'm going to go to a technical aspect, I haven't forgotten. I'm going to bring in people. From this side, there's me and a few crew members. There's also 5 actors brought in. From the other side, I'm just saying it, like Montana, the National Guard of Montana, military people, and local community, whomever. There was an open border. Everybody could come in and in and out. There were firefighters coming in, parking their truck, putting on a uniform, being on the film, then going to work. And their space is actually it's camp, military camp. Now, like for every film, this is the starting point, and then I need to assess. There's this catharsis that goes on, this constant assessment, constant engagement, trying to dig deep into our truth, bring it into the film. Same thing over here, same thing in The Damned. At that point, I make choices to choose the characters. Now, what is the difference here? I already said that there's a lot of people involved, and yet I needed to make a war film, bringing it down to the minimum denominator, which is the single person. Again, I'm striving for something subjective, not objective. I'm striving for the single, not the whole. So I use lenses that are quite unique, vintage lenses. For the first time in my career, I use a wide angle. And those lenses, they have chromatic and focus aberration. So the focus area is only in the middle. And so I iconize characters in the middle, and I frame almost always one by one, with some rare exception, but the focus is always on one. And the film is built like that. I mean, even optically, there's no other way of filming it. The horizon does not exist, it's always blurred. It is symptomatic of an experience. So, and that's how it's done, to create, not only to create a sense of intimacy, but to record the true intimacy that was created in that experience of inhabiting the space. If somebody asks, we can talk about it. What is the difference, though, of being someone who's not a soldier, playing a soldier, versus being someone who plays his or her own self in life? So documentary versus fiction, we can talk about that. But experientially speaking, the situation is quite similar. Because we're going through an experience.
But you say you had no script, but still in the film, there we could speak about clear protagonist in the film.
Okay, yeah? So yes, I did not.
So still, you had some storyline, like.
No, I had an idea that we were going on a war mission, and we will film chronologically, and at some point there would be a scuffle, a battle, which I didn't know I would ship up. I knew the proportions, right? They say, documents, diaries say that war is 98% waiting and 2% fighting. So I said, proportionally, this is how we're going to structure it. Increasing the level of tedium or nothingness, which is never nothing because there's procedures to do. From making foods to mending the animals to gathering together to all of that is not nothing, but it is not linked by a cause effect relationship that we find in film. Everything has a cause and an effect. No, I break that apart, that paradigm apart. So with that, and I know that at some point, but only for the two, proportionally, for much smaller portion, something extremely fast-paced and intense will happen, and it happens in the film. It catches usually even the viewer by surprise.
But you want to say it was not clear for you that, for example, this young boy is your protagonist, that it came out later in the...
So I made it a point that during this phase before the scaffold, no one would be, and this was clear for that, there's no main protagonist here. I would film them very democratically. They always had the same screen time, usually. Nobody had a defined role. And only through the experience they emerge at those who really felt that they wanted to carry the story forward. They want almost to carry the weight of the story on their shoulder. It came from them, not from me. Only a few days before, at some point, there's an aftermath of the battle. The company of soldiers makes a decision. A few people must leave to find a way out. So this is basically the synopsis, okay? These people leave, we decided just a couple of days before, because we did physically leave and went to the mountains. We had to climb and climb and climb to find a true way out of there. So but that was decided very organically, so there is nothing. I think I wrote, I'm credited as a screenplay, as a writer, just because I used the oral tradition of storytelling. I didn't write a single thing on paper, but I wrote it in my mind. But after the fact, or as I was shooting, I wrote it.
I didn't want to undermine your position as a
screenwriter.
I am asking just because of the method. Yeah.
But that's interesting. No, I know you didn't. Yeah, you didn't mean to bring me down. No, I know that. I know this is friendly fire. No, but apart from that, joking aside, I totally understand. I think it's also important to specify why I claim my right to be a screenwriter, even if I don't write. Because I do write without a pen, I do compose.
It's writing, baby. For how long? Because you say some people were even leaving. So for how long these people were drowning into this experience that they were in a way living this battle journey? And was the battle? Was it the end, really, as you say, chronologically? So it was, the whole thing was...
The battle was the middle. So we like it is in the film, in a way. We stayed in Montana for 2 months. I went before and set camp, with the tents and the horse line and all that. And then we were dropped off by all-terrain vehicles there in the morning and picked up when the sun set, because we shot only natural light, and it's almost 99.9% exterior film, except for some scenes in the tent at night. So we were there for 2 months, and people were just waiting to see if there was something to do for them. But there's something I triggered. I triggered a sense of instability in the group. The first 5 days, I sent home about 20 people. The locals went home just with their own vehicles. Others were put on a plane because I thought, that they were not maybe, they were like this. They were potential deserter or not equipped to go through this journey. That caused a sentiment of instability. So it definitely influenced the experience. People started understanding, my filmic death could come at any time here. Sometimes we talk to people, it's like, can I ask you, why did you do or say something? Like, does that come from you? It seems like the negation of who you are. So what are you going to do from now on? It's like, I'll talk to you in a few days. I'm going to observe you. You won't see much camera probably, but I don't understand where you're going. Are you committed to this? Or are you complaining that it's cold? You came to Montana in the winter and to do an exterior film. You don't like the cold, so maybe you just don't want to be here, and that's okay. But I'll ask you in a couple of days. So people were on edge. And some people say, you know what, I'm going to commit to the experience. So some people like, I want to be out of here. And that's kind of how things were created. But it's an experiential approach that is not so different from my documentaries. There is a crucial difference. These people were taken from their own place of origin and put somewhere else. Whereas others, I filmed in their place. They played themselves. But then my question is that it's not an answer. It's a question to myself, or to whomever wants to listen, since I have a microphone. Sure, it is a different way of being oneself. Myself at home or myself here, here, the way I am right now. But do I really cease to be myself, my own self, really? Or is it just myself in a different situation, like it happens in life, right? Have I ever not put on a uniform? And yet, have I ever not been cautious about what I want to deliver? Have I ever not been, have I ever not controlled the way people want to perceive me, or the way I want people to perceive me? Yeah, exactly. It's just what I said. Yes, I have. It is nothing new. It takes a little reframing the situation, but there's many selves, and there's no hierarchy of self, and there isn't a hierarchy of truth or truer self. So that's what I started playing with. And as I said, it's not an answer, it's a question. That's what I said. The fact that I put these guys over here, yeah, they're not in Oakland, California, they're not in Brooklyn, they're not in Waller, Texas, they're not in the homes of Helena, Montana, they're here. And they're not wearing their sneakers, they're wearing boots. But yet they're here. And this is the experience is actually very, very real and very, very tactile. And it's real for the senses. It's real for the intellect. So, can we call this documenting? If we abandon the idea that documentary doesn't tell any absolute truth, then maybe this is documenting. So this was the premise for the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you placed them into different century. You said this space is different century, and you gave them visual attributes of different century. But for me, there is not so big difference with the passage, where you took a couple of guys just on the travel around Texas, and you were probably observing them in real situations. What happened? Was it something like this?
Yeah, because if I don't give them any homework, nobody, I didn't share an idea with anybody. I didn't tell anybody to read about war or Civil War or America. I didn't tell them whether they were characters, what role in the army. Nothing is predefined. Nothing is informed. So what happens is they have a uniform. They know they're in some sort of experiential cinema situation which they have no idea about, with the exception of 3 people that come from Stop the Bonding Heart, the father and 2 kids. They've been with me, so they kind of knew what to expect in a way. When I didn't say anything, I said, just be here, welcome here, I'll see you every day, and until we're done. So they knew Roberto will figure something out. I'm sure it would be filming something on me that would resemble myself. That's what they told me. So in a way, what's going to happen? People, they're not actors. So what are they going to gather from to create their own character from themselves, with their own strengths and weaknesses and limitation? And everything that they say, no matter whether they're talking about the past or not, it comes from the present. It comes from the present moment. It's a political stance. It's something extremely personal. And I knew that there was no difference, or at least there was a congruence between who they are and what they're talking about. There are a couple of scenes, those who will watch the film, they will see. There are at least 2, there's 2 very clear instances when they say 2 characters in separate moments of the film. They say, I remember when I was a child. So they do go back to a past, but they can go as far as their own experience. So I remember when I was young, and then they bring it back to the present and say, in America, or the US Army does that too. So they connect it, but there's nothing truly fictional about that. It just, the marriage between the experience and fiction is perfect because it enhances this idea of fiction, but they're just talking about the way we're talking right now. There's absolutely no difference. And that's the power, I think, of really for me, the power of making this film and putting uniforms on and putting on a screen, 1862. So I'm telling you, this is 1862. So please be warned, you're watching something fictional. And yet people, and then I free everybody from thinking that this is anything true, and I free them from the obligation of delivering the truth, so everybody can be free or be who they want to be. And I think in that I humbly succeeded. I don't know how much will be transparent, but when I watch it, I know I succeeded, because people are just who they are. It doesn't, it doesn't matter the uniform or the fact that the war is a long gone war and the times were long gone time. There's nothing long gone. The film was made in 2022.
Yeah. And did you face some, like, I think it's impossible, because that real war was so long ago that people have some problem either to be, because it was between this confederation and unionist, and suddenly you are on this, not on this unionist side, but you are with this unionist soldier, where they somehow still, did you feel some references on that?
Yeah, that's
a very good. Is this memory somehow alive? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question and a good point, and something I like to talk about, because I placed this story in the past because basically what I did by doing that, I wanted to cut the umbilical cord, the emotional umbilical cord that puts historical facts and characters and people in relationship, the emotional codependence. So yes, intellectually, they all related to the Civil War. I believe every American relates and has some sort of reaction, perhaps intellectual, perhaps even bodily reactions to it. But that emotional proximity is gone. There's no proximity to it. Proximity is also the emotional proximity is something to be used with care. I could, maybe we'll talk about it. I don't need to stop right now, but the proximity has to be used with care, because I could actually manipulate the hell out of an audience with emotional proximity. I could talk about a certain death of people, death of values, death of systems that relates to everybody here, and already held everybody emotionally. They already people already took sides. So I'm already telling what to feel. Do you sorry if it creates confusion, but sometimes perhaps that's a good starting point. But so I remove things emotionally from where we are. So everything that emerges emotionally, it's a reaction to the experience, or a reaction to inhabiting a space. Now, as a matter of fact, what made the experience very complex, and why did I bring members of the army in? Because the starting point was completely different. It was not emotional. It was philosophical. It was political. The first day where we met, and I say, hello, this is who I am. This is what we're going to do. We're going to travel and stay there. One day something will happen. That's that. If you have a horse, you're cavalry. If you don't have a horse, you're infantry. Those are the uniforms. Somebody raised a hand. I've never seen him before in my life. Yeah, because as I said, a lot of people, they just came into the project. And it says, I only want to say one thing. You're wearing the U.S. Army uniform, respect it. And people were like, wait a minute, it's like, I don't care what you're doing here. I don't care what y'all are doing, a film. This is a U.S. uniform. This is a signifier for me, of my history. It's not for you, it is for me. So respect it. And that creates the kind of dialectics, really. There's something negative about the dialectics among them. It triggers a discourse. So, another example, day 3. We travel. Those who will see the film, they'll see a travel. They'll see the first moment where people dismount from a horse. Dismount! Well, it wasn't that easy. All of a sudden, like I'm busy doing a lot of things, I hear dismount, dismount, and the people don't dismount. And some of the people who came from this side, the actors, like, well, I never ridden a horse in my life, I need to get up. And they were waiting for a true life, a real life lieutenant to tell them, yes, you can dismount. So the filmic does not matter to us. He's our boss. Yeah, he's dressed like a normal trooper, a private soldier, but he's our lieutenant. And we respect him this transcends what we're doing here. This is the experience, and we want to live the experience based on our beliefs, credo, set of morality, ethic code, and philosophy overall. So that was really nice. Third episode, day 5, the day where I lost it. I was filming and I was hearing, trooper, yes, and I was seeing hands like the trooper, like, oh my God, you know. And so I screamed, I lost it. And I said, enough with this trooper. I cast too, but it doesn't matter. I said, enough. You're driving me crazy. Trooper, this is not a joke. This is a film. This is not a pantomime. It's ridiculous. Do you realize what it means? I show off a trooper. Yes, sir. Trooper. Yes, sir. This is what, Benny Hill? And they were saying, sir, how would you want us to call a trooper? I don't know, you know, my name, or like, but we don't do that in the Army. We call them a trooper. There are codes. And I would say, yeah, it's codes that I don't like because they don't make you relatable. I say, yeah, precisely. We're soldiers. We protect you. We'll fight for you. We're not. And I say, screaming, you're right. Because he was right. And that sent me into a huge, one of my first experiential catharsis. Like, how do you reconcile that? And that's what I was talking about, even about a film can never, it doesn't matter whether it stems from documentary, from observation, or from fiction, or from an idea, from a concept, or from an experience, from something planned, or from an accident. It is codified with the language of cinema, which is an abstraction for reality, something that makes the film digestible. And that's what in the end I had to say. This is the choice, but I'm at peace with that. This is just an experiential piece of work that is codified, dubbed, so that people could relate. Relatability, okay, versus truth. Okay, so I want the film to be relatable, and that's what I try to explain. But for them, it's like, you owe me an explanation. You're mocking me. You're telling me that the world, yes, this is true, because in order for, and that's what the U.S., especially U.S. industry, film industry did, right? In order to humanize soldiers, to make them relatable, they just made them more human. They their conscience crisis, their personal martyrdom, their personal sacrifice, all of that was coded so that people could relate and accept it. So that sent me into that. So these 3 things are just 3 out of the myriad of examples that I have about, how truth always, and it emerges in its subjective power.
I think it's a great introduction for the film, and we are more than an hour. So I think we should turn. Please go ahead. There is a question.
Hi, I'm curious. What were some latest things in your filmmaker's approach that you realized that you would and will do differently next time? Next question is, can you tell us maybe some of latest movie that you saw that you liked? And I'm also curious, what will you do next if you already knew?
Yes. You will have to remember me because I tend to digress, as you know. And then I said, what was I? So you remember me, please remind me about question number 2, number 3. What was number 1?
The things that you will do differently.
Oh, well, it's Jean-Luc Godard said that every film. Sometimes I don't say that. Sometimes I say it as if it's me, but it's actually Jean-Luc Godard. Since there's a camera, better disclose. Full disclosure here. Sorry when I said that it's me. I enjoyed those saying it, but it's Jean-Luc Godard that say, every film is a starting point. It's an assessment. It's a manual. It's a set of notes that I would then study and assess what to do differently. So for me, it's the same. But I don't do that only. It's not just the dialogue between me and my film. It's also what happens when I put the film out there and I hear feedback and I read critiques and then I try to understand what to do differently. Sometimes it's because I believe that I could have done it better. Some other times it's because I believe I should push things beyond something we already know. What is it that I wanted to change? Like, I think so many. That's why I'm undecided. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to find one for you, maybe that pleases, that excites you, which could be. I think in the last film, I want to go back to something I used to do, which I didn't do. Because I stepped into a realm that was different. So I worked on a film that is more fictional, and I forgot to do something I always do, which is I don't go do the shoot for a couple of days, and I give the camera and let people direct. You know, my crew shoots, they direct. I need to reset. They also need to understand that there's an empowerment that goes with it. They also need to understand they are. It's too easy to tell them that we work with equanimity, they're contributors. You know, facts speak louder. So I need to let them direct and let them shoot without telling me, without reporting to me. And it's also important for the characters to see that the film can exist without me, that I'm not this all, omniscient authority or that holds all the knowledge. This time, I was too scared to do that. So I would, in my own humble experience, I recommend trying that, to just not show up and let people who have a lot to say to take over and to take much needed, break from your own self. And it helps pulling the plug. This time I didn't do it, and I regret that. But I was too scared. And if you ask me today, are you ready to do it? No. So what is it about that fear? It's the fear that is, fear is big. For me, there's a lot of fear. I mean, challenging status quo is something that puts one in a very vulnerable place. Even the fear of mockery, right? The more visceral, primordial fears, being rejected. It's very hard to deal with that. To deal with the fact that people say, here he goes, right? Or there are people who say he doesn't do this. This is not as powerful as his previous work. Or people who say he's not up to the task. And then there are people who say the opposite, say that this is great, but sometimes, all it takes is a criticism to at least for me, to make me feel very fragile, which is something I cherish. So always question, second guess myself. I'm never too overly confident. But yeah, so that's something I would do differently now. I miss that. I miss that very much, to get out of the way and let people take over. Second question?
Latest film you like?
All the films by Christopher Zanussi, which are not the latest, among the latest I watched. Something highly controversial, very few people agree with me, The Substance, it was in Cannes. A few people feel that there is an exploitation, a display of cinematic display. I do think that the absurdism in the film transcends discourses of beauty and masculinity, femininity. I think it's almost about society that phagocytates it, eats itself with this excessive information overflow, and all of a sudden humanity becomes like, I don't know. Just humanity defecates itself. It's almost the way I saw it. So The Substance that was in Cannes and won Best Screenplay for me is the True Palme d'Or. Again, I don't seem to be much in agreement with a lot of colleagues. And the DAO experiences, this is the 2020s. I think it's one of the last films I've seen where the performance of the self and this kind of autogenetic aspect of film, like people push themselves through a performance and challenge their own limits, a la Marina Abramovic, physical limits, mental limits. I really appreciate it. Third question? I will make a film in Italy. And Don't ask question because I like to answer questions, and I'm not supposed to answer question, but I cannot not answer questions. So I'm going to answer a question. But the producer is here, and I'm in trouble. It's all your fault. But I like it that you asked me that because I don't like to keep secrets. So I'm going to make a film that is mainly autobiographical because I lost my mom a year now. And that kind of, I'm an orphan now, and none of my family lives in Italy. In Italy, I want to go and claim the soil back, in a way, my experiences back. I feel free, less scared, in a way, to narrate a story, knowing that, since I don't believe in the afterlife, I won't harm anybody. I won't make anybody feel guilty, because if my parents are guilty, then I go on a guilt trip. But they're not here. So I will work on something that at least inspired by my own story and the relationship with a mother who told his son, man cannot teach you how to be a man. I will teach you. And otherwise it's going to be a disaster. So I, a woman, will teach you how to be a man. And that's why, I don't know if she was right, but that's, anyway, so that's what I'm going to do next. And I do feel that maybe it's the beginning of something. I long for Italy a little bit. I long for, entering a dialogue through cinema with my country of origin. I'm a little tired of, I saw the dismissal that America has towards my film sometimes, yeah.
I wanted to ask, since you mentioned that you write something like a script in your head, but never write it down, and there's no clear protagonist beforehand, then what role do you take in the editing process of the film?
The editing is crucial, and it works like this. I film, and there's no real protagonist in place. This is something that is common to other colleagues, to shoot more characters than they are actually featured in the last film, so I never know which ones will emerge. And then I don't review the footage, so I write because I don't reshoot anyway, and I don't want to, my self-doubt to be triggered. Then I send the footage to Mariela Endoso, my editor, and I tell her story, either through a WhatsApp message or like I did for the last film. I put together a 22-minute sequential, editing, assembly of some scenes, and I subtitled it, telling a story. Literally, hello Marie, this is the film, and this is how we start, maybe. And this we could go, we had to get to some point, I don't know, here are some options that I'm gonna throw in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And at some point I have no idea. I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but you will see, bye-bye. And so she will work, and I used to do that all the time, so she works about 1 or 2 months alone, and she usually starts with her own needs. See, that's the thing, we have different needs. Maria has the need to assess rhythm, to assess really the endurance, the stamina of the footage I gave her. What if I cut, shorter, what if I cut quicker, or jumpier, or what if I smoother? And she assesses and she adjusts her own approach to the footage, to the intrinsic nature of the footage. Now she works on beginnings and endings, and she finds middle points. And and then we get together and we work for 3 months about. It is not a surprise for me that because of the way the process starts, without a clear character, with knowing chronologically where I start, but not really knowing where I end. It is no coincidence that the ending of this one, the last one, the last 2 films at least, and I would have to see that the top partner as well, has been chosen by Mariela, and it always surprised me. I had no idea that I never thought that this film could end the way it ended. It was shot for totally different purposes and totally different moments, but she captured something that had the flavor, the essence of an ending for her. So at some point we will have a beginning, we will have an ending, we have other things, and we start a discussion and we start putting things together. And the process has been very, very smooth until one time we went to war and didn't speak for a month. And that was for the other side. That can happen. It's the unpredictability of the editing. So, but the short answer to your question is the editing is key. It is another moment where the film is made and it could take completely different shapes. But there's also sound editing, because I edited sound. Didn't edit, but I worked on soundscape and score before working on image this time. Just because I wanted to break another status quo, the accessory, ancillary aspect of sound over image, the sovereignty of image. The sound becomes an afterthought. It's at service of an image. And I say, if we work on only a soundscape, imagining what images could be, how would that affect the choice of images, perhaps reverting the hierarchy? And would that enrich the experience? So you will tell me, but this film has a rich sound just because it's been created in its main part before editing picture. So it was the music created by the director of photography, by the way. So yeah, so there's several phases of the editing. I don't just because sometimes they ask me about editing, and it goes without saying that it's picture editing. But right now I'm considering sound editing just at the same level, because if I shut down image, the soundscape has its own arc.
May I just ask shortly in this direction? Marie is a key editor of Dardenne Brothers. Does she work with them also similar way, or you have very different approach?
No, completely different. The Dardenne write everything. Actually, they're very methodical. Every September they share shooting. They shoot for 3 months. It's always the same. So it's very, very methodical. You're assuming I'm criticizing there.
Okay, thank you.
A little bit. No, but so there's more. They shoot the same film with a small camera in the morning. They shoot, and then they shoot with the real camera at night. Everything's controlled. There's never a shadow cutting a face in the middle for the Dardenne Brothers. But they have their own reasons for doing that. The wrong ones. No, just joking. They have their own reasons for doing that. But with Marie-Hélène, my approach is very, very different. What Marie has is this incredible sense of, an incredible innate sense of rhythm and her adaptability, because she really gets attached to a project. And when she's attached to the project, it's as if she starts anew. But she has an incredible sensitivity. But yes, we are very, very different in our approaches. Yeah.
So it seems she has much more freedom with you, actually, that you...
Yes, incredible freedom. I mean, to be honest, yes. I mean, we are very good friends, so I can say now, yeah, she always looks forward. She sometimes tells me, when are you making a film? I really need you. I really need to, when I'm with you, I pull the plug from everything else, and I know I'm going to just, breathe a story and because this is a project that relies on a process. Filmmaking relies on some fear, the fear of not getting it right. It's a fear after fear after fear of not making the film you wanted to make. Fear, but fearlessness is about being more carefree, and for me it is very important. It's very important to at least, I do have my own fear, but it's very important not to act them out. I don't fix them. I'm scared. I cry, take a shower, and I'm okay. So I let it flow like every other emotion, fear. I don't try to compensate for it. And Marie knows that. So in Stop the Pounding Heart, my film, the first one where I really arrived with it, like Santa Claus with a bag of hours of footage, and I shot this film, and I shot 2 realities. Let me tell you, I think it could go this way or the opposite. And like, what? This is 2012, and like, what? This is not. I can't find a story here, but it's okay. And then she cried. And I said, Marie, look, did I ever tell you that we had to make a film? I told you we had to edit a film. I mean, relax. But, if it doesn't, what's the big deal? Of course, I'm scared. Of course, I'm scared. That was, easy for myself to say that. What's a big deal? I feel, it's ridiculous. But I do need to stay strong and say it's not a big deal. This is one of the possibilities. It's freeing to think that maybe we don't have a film. So she relaxed and she edited, and that was a film that that it's very dear to me and dear to us. And from then on, Marie-Hélène, something, she says, there's a book that's been published. I mean, Vienna, I'm throwing it there just to sound cool, like it's nothing. But no, seriously, she says that. I didn't know. She wrote a piece, I just read it yesterday. And she says that this was really, it changed her as a person. You know, the way of editing, knowing that in the end, the worst case scenario is not that bad.
Many questions.
I'm wondering if you can talk a bit about the way you work with the cinematographer usually, and how was it different doing the fiction now? Especially, I don't know if it was also the reason why you worked with someone else for the first time.
Yes, I worked with Diego Romero for my first 5 films. We started together, and our relationship and our strong symbiotic way of working was based on this fearlessness that we had, which I talked about, which doesn't mean not to be scared, but it meant to just, when you sense that something is scary, perhaps you had to go there. And perhaps you had to experience what the obstacles are. So we went, we dived head first all the time. And it was great. But this one was a little different. I needed a particular care for details. I needed to heighten the sensation of stillness, silences, and to make sure that everything that happens action-wise is born from stillness. Okay, the relationship between stillness and action. Why does something happen? Couldn't things be still forever, or for how long? So anyway, for that sensitivity, I thought that Carlos Corral, who had started also his career with me, and he was my first AC. I produced this documentary, which is excellent, called Dirty Feathers. So I thought that he had that particular sensitivity, which comes from the way he relates to people and his gentleness, the way how, in a way, shy, and and that created a difference. So it was different. Now, how do I work? So there is something about part of the photography, since we work in natural light, the crucial part is operating camera, right, and framing. So in the beginning of my career, with The Passage and Low Tide, especially those two, Diego and I had some sort of an agreement, a tacit agreement. So when you have your camera on your shoulder, you do and frame as you want, and you give it to me, and I do whatever I want. Which again trained us to think that there are many ways of doing things, and also the kind of tolerance of the fact that other people could do what I do, and that was good. But then the debate started on why do we do things the way we do it, and trying to find a common ground. So this evolved, and we started putting some parameters. Are we going to ever film with with the light, frontal light? Are we going to have the characters walk towards us ever, or are we going to walk with the characters, right? Because that's a totally different dynamic. So again, I'm talking photography in terms of photography and directing. They're enmeshed in this work. But this is what I want a photographer to do with me. If the photographer cannot answer those questions, then you're operating camera. Therefore, I can operate camera, because I can measure light. That's not what I need. So why do you do things? And so it evolved. And that's why my other films are more cogent, more coherent in terms of aesthetics. There is a continuity, there's a softness in the way they work. In this last one, and then there are the decision. Like in this last one, there are no camera movements, meaning I discussed it with Carlos, and I say every time we move the camera, either punch in or pan or tilt, that's an editing cut. Or it's distinct that way. So if you film something and you've been in this situation, you frame this for 10 seconds, and then you move, and then you pan or you tilt or you punch in, you have to know that we only have 10 seconds of that. You cut. Okay, because I won't include movements. Because why? Because we agreed that this film had something more classical. It's a classicism in the framing, the stillness that I needed. So I don't have a univocal answer on how to work with the director of photography, but the answer is this, is with the director of photography, with me, I require for a director of photography to also put on the hat of a director, because photographing a film doesn't mean thinking in terms of continuity or exposure or contrast ratio. It also means, how to put the characters in relationship with the surroundings and in relationship with each other. And framing them is very, very, very important. And understanding whatever you do implies that you didn't do something else. So when we assess what you did, you and myself, same thing, I want to know what else you could have done and why you didn't do it. And now that I had a first-time director of photography, the first-time cinematographer, it was his debut film, I made sure that I would call him up on this, on his responsibility, to understand what you could do. And do not answer because I liked, because you liked in comparison with what? Tell me what other, you make a choice, so tell me the choices. So this is to hide in a sense of really like photographing an experience. Like you are responsible for delivering something that would be a film. You're responsible for the coherency, for the consistency of a film, not just for framing, for something that seems to be looking good, abiding to certain parameters. Anything more technical you wanted to know? I can tell you that too. I mean, I'm not just some sort of poet. I don't gaze at the stars. I'm extremely rigorous and technical. I can tell you exactly that we shoot at 2.0 constantly because I need that depth of field. So yeah, so there's a lot of using the filter 2.0. Sometimes we can go, we can close a little bit, but we never reach 4 because the perspective, especially with a wide angle, because then the depth of field starts becoming a little schizophrenic. I don't like schizophrenic aspect of imagery for the sake of it. So I like the rigor of something that stays consistent. I don't work ever with front light, flat, because the effect on the separation between the subject and the background, it is excessive. There are some examples at night where I did it, but that's because the background falls to black. It becomes shadow. So that it's almost like a pictorial image, iconization of the characters. So I try to keep the aperture constant, and I don't change lenses. In this case, in the new film, I changed the lens to a 50 millimeter, only in the tents at night. There are a few scenes, 3 or 4, with tents at night, which have a very shallow focus, yet they open at 0.93, so it gives me a lot, I could film a candlelight. Otherwise, for my filmography, I choose one lens in the beginning, I do some tests, not on set, I just do tests wherever in the camera house, and I choose one lens and I commit to it. That gives me also flexibility of not having to be changing lenses, checking gates, or anything like that. I don't use tripods, with the exception of this film, where there are moments there. Again, I'm in dialogue with a fiction, with a genre as well, and fiction filmmaking. So I create moments of staticity, of stillness, moments of formalistic approach to it. But before this film, I had never done it. So I never use a tripod. I force people my co-camera operators to practice on diaphragmatic respiration, breathing, so that, because I hate it when you breathe with your lungs and the camera does this. So you breathe with the diaphragm and you avoid doing that. And I force everybody, and this is actually very serious. I go to the gym, I train very hard before filming because you had to challenge you, meaning I ask for a challenge to challenge. I don't like unnecessary jerky movements of the body. When the action moves, that we have the skeletal-muscular structure that would allow us to move just as smoothly as a dolly, as long as your muscles respond. So everybody has to go to the gym, or I operate the camera. So this time it is true, because you can move very smoothly and stay in a position that if you're not trained, then it's going to hurt, because the camera is 35 pounds. So you have to train very hard. Sometimes you might have to move like this and stay like this for maybe 15 minutes. So training is necessary. I think that I like the physicality of photography very, very much. Also because I know that when I do shoot a film, I just sit on a sofa and just, and laugh and cry at comedies on TV, like in my life, and wondering why am I even alive. So at least the physicality of making films is something that I want to bring back, and that is highly, again, it's highly experiential. So yes.
Hi, on filmcomment.com I read that you used non-professional.
Oh yes, okay.
Hi. You used non-professional actors. Why did you choose non-professional actors? Thank you.
I'm hesitating because I don't actually know very much, so I'm thinking. I'm asking myself the same question. There was a debate around that, and the problem is not professional actors, non-professional actors. They bring different things to the table, okay? Number one, and that I considered, when you don't know what to do, let's simplify this. You don't know what to do because the director doesn't tell you. If you're not a professional actor, you can only rely on your own self, your own idea of performance, the performance of the self. If you're a professional actor, you can gather from your own technique, your arsenal of tools, and you might end up what we call overacting. This is a difference that has to be considered, yet, a very good actor understands how not to step into that. So it's not crucial in the decision, but the decision is about the fact that this kind of shapeless, in a way, free-form approach is very dear to me, where one day you might be called to film for long, long hours, and another day you might not do anything, and maybe we break for 3 days instead of 1, just because there are factors can pertain to personal life. People had to go somewhere, or we are tired, or we just things aren't working. So all of that, and not having because it's not just about not having a screenplay or not having a clear story. It's also not abiding by a schedule that we inherit from these codes of filmmaking, right? The industry tells you that you must work this way, you must work these hours, you must break this way, or even more so, you cannot cross the axis when you film. So you must choose continuity over everything else. All of that, I try to keep it very, that is, again, independent cinema. Independent cinema means that, not to depend on anything that is being, not to depend from the precepts. So the problem with actors is that I haven't found yet, at least in the United States, actors who come in and they're willing and or able to just ditch all the precepts of the industry and say, I'm going to do something completely new. And but I think I will find them in Italy. Different culture, different language, different tradition, different preoccupations.
Hi, I wanted to ask, what do you think of Nicolas Cage?
I'm going to answer, but why?
I think my previous question was boring.
The biggest what?
My previous question was boring, so I changed it.
No, but but still, if you ask, there must be a reason.
Yeah, I like him.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a reason. Yeah. I'm disappointed. I thought you would say because you look like Nicolas Cage, something like that, but you didn't say that. It's okay. No, but yeah, you like Nicolas Cage. What I think it's chameleonic. I like the fact that he's an extrovert. He definitely seemed to have, perhaps his eccentric nature comes from trauma. I mean, he's born in an environment that was talking about precepts, talking about, things that are already, predefined. He comes with a Coppola family. And yet he has a rebellious nature that might also stem from from trauma, perhaps, or not feeling, who knows, feeling some inadequacy, I don't know. But something moved him to be perhaps eccentric, to step out of the comfort zone constantly. So I do like him for that. And I just wish, I wish they gave him projects to really unleash his potential, which is his true nature. Because in the end, I think his character is less interesting than who he is. Because if you read Nicolas Cage's story, personal story, the way he relates to other people, to the opposite sex, and the relationship he has with his own body, with aging, I think there's a lot there that he still uses the mask of a character to just give us a little bit of himself. And I do think he could be one of the greatest actors that America's ever seen. I think, unfortunately, he's still wearing the masks of characters. That's all. But yeah, it's great, and I like him too.
And I would like to ask, how do you build up confidence between the camera and the protagonist, and to reach the intimacy that is in your films? And if you are ever interested in psychology of your protagonist?
Yeah, so confidence is not a necessary requirement. I can work with, I work when there is confidence in me, in oneself, in themselves. I work when there is lack of confidence in me, in themselves. These two realms can push the film in different ways, but they're both worth exploring. So I work when people trust me and when they don't trust it. That also I'm going into the intimacy. The only way to build intimacy for me, and I'm going back to the space, it's the feeling of safety to be who you want to be, without being judged. I mean, intimacy can only be, the way I see it, can only be reached when you don't feel judged. Otherwise, it's impossible to feel fully vulnerable. That is not always achievable. I had to set an example, and I know, and I make people laugh sometimes. Obviously, I'm aware of that, but I do it on purpose as well, because there is a nature of me that is highly comedic. And there is a desecrating aspect of myself that I want people to know me for that. I don't want people to think that I'm this eminent filmmaker who can enlighten the life of everyone. I want people to walk out of this, because if they don't like, but at least they walked out of, of a place where I was being real. And that's our approach thing. That's the only tool I have. I can be real to a character. And I can tell, and that's what I was doing an interview before, and I was saying, I might not tell you exactly what we're going to do in the film, but I will do my best of telling you what you just did might mean for yourself, for a possible film, for the audiences who will watch you. And I want you to be fully aware of what's going on. And I want you to tell me if you trust this thing enough so that we can continue or not. For example, how do you think I could direct scenes where the paramilitary say, yeah, we are in danger with America. We just hate certain Americans. Just to say, do you understand the repercussions of this? Do you understand? Let me tell you how it's going to work in Europe. Let me tell you how it's going to work in West Coast and East Coast of the United States. Let me tell you what I think of you. Let me tell you why I think we should continue or not. So this gives a chance of people to say, you know what? Like people tell me, I roll with you, or I don't want to roll with you. I'm done. And it happened many times. Or it's me who say, I don't trust you, I'm done. But intimacy is a subproduct of a process that aims at being transparent. Confidence is a subproduct of a process that aims at being transparent. It is not a precondition. It is something that has to be earned, that might or might not emerge. Or it might emerge after the film. Many times it emerged after the film was done. With the Black Panthers, Watching Her Do With the World on Fire, 2018. We worked with the Black Panthers with the agreement that we would continue to be together despite our irreconcilable differences, and despite the fact that we would never sit at a table as friends. That was given to me. And when they told me they want to work with me, for the first 2 months, I said, no way. I'm not going to step into your world, that dark side with the police chasing you. I'm not interested. If you want to give me, I'm not ready to open my doors to you. Then I did. So it went both ways until, for those who have seen the film, at some point there's a clash with the police. And it happens late in the process, and it features late in the process. I've been threatened by other Panthers that didn't know everything more happening there. I had to stick with the process until at that point. There have been arrests that have been made. We used the sound from the lavaliers of people who were arrested and abused to actually free them. And at that point, they said, and they told us, no one from the media has ever filmed the protest, one of our protests, from our side, with the camera in the face of the policeman. They're always from the other side, okay, from the side of safety, institutional safety and protection. So they say, you know, we trust you. At least we trust you that you would do the right thing. That's a level of trust. So it happened in the end. And it was, I remember, it was a liberatory, you know, we cry because it finally, or at least I personally, because it finally meant, you know, it was really hard to be there for them to hold that space, even if they didn't trust me. But, you know, trusting and confidence, nothing is, if confidence was I cannot ask for confidence if I cannot guarantee them that I'll be confident throughout the process. I cannot ask people to do an act and be the way I cannot do an act and be. I cannot set the bar that high. I cannot be confident throughout the process. I cannot trust you fully throughout the span. Perhaps I cannot. And so I cannot ask people to be, you know, to do things or to be in a way that I cannot be or do.
There is a question over there. We don't know where we should end. Yeah, we don't when we should end. So maybe we are just now nearly 2 hours discussing. Marek probably will decide the end. No,
I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, no, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I probably need at some point a bathroom break, but other than that, I'm good. It's up to you.
So maybe, yeah.
I don't know. It's up to.
We can say we are coming to last questions, which will provoke more questions.
Okay.
Questions. So
that's right.
Let's go ahead.
I have a comment or question, something between. I saw the movie Damned yesterday, and I wanted to ask, because I remember a younger guy who is talking about how he is too young for the war. And I didn't know, and when you said that you didn't tell them that this is a war situation and this is a civil war, it was so authentic when he was talking, and there were many of these personal intimacy conversations. So it's just, for me, it's just unbelievable to hear that
Sure.
you didn't say anything.
No, wait. Yes. No, I understand. It's not that they didn't know that this was a film about the Civil War. This is a film set, you know, it's a civil war, it's the US Civil War. And we're going to set, you know, camp, we're going to be stationed in a place where Civil War did not take place, Montana, but the gold rush was starting there. So it is a historical fact that the soldiers were deployed in the area where gold was found. That opens another chapter of American history. And it ties into the expropriation of land from Native Americans. But so that they didn't that much. They knew that much. What you see, again, remember I talk about relatability. You read that, what did I say? That's your truth, and it has a value. You saw that as intimacy. For you, that was a disclosure of something intimate. That was a conversation. You see a scene of a 3-minute scene, and you perceive that as something intimate because, in a way, it resonated to something to you. Wonderful. I could see that as didactical. It's true too. That's a subjectivity, the subjective response to it. Beautiful. I can only tell you how that is made. I said before that I roll the camera, and or maybe I said it even in the interview, I make sure to roll the camera when, without people feeling necessarily prepared for it. We sit down, in that case, when you talk, you know, they sit down and we're rolling the camera, and then they go through, usually through a moment. Usually silence or verbosity, talking too much. One of the two, whatever tool they choose when they're in front of the camera. But the camera will not, will not cut. Usually I roll the camera for a long, long time. And if we run out of memory card, sound continues to record. I said it before, there are two realms here, sound and they're independent. Okay, they don't travel at the same speed. So everybody knows in my crew, if camera is done, nobody's gonna say roll out because sound is recording. Sound can be used over image, over other images, so there's no dictatorship of images, number one. So then maybe we reload the camera and I clap, sound catches the clap. So here we are reconnecting images and camera, continue to shoot. And then maybe do it 3-4 times. It could be you might have seen something that actually lasted an hour, or people sitting there or chit-chatting, or maybe delivering a moment and they can feel like intimate. They can feel intimate. But I think in that specific case, are you referring to the moment where this young soldier says, I don't know what I'm doing here, and it triggers the conversation about being a man? So that is not a short scene. That is probably, it is an hour and a half. And the catharsis, the person who went inward is the adult. Who, I said before, there are two moments where people say, I remember when I was young. That's one of them. He saw his own catharsis. What it means to be a man, I was angry. I spent my whole youth being in a certain way. So that transcends the film. He went places for himself. And put it that way, with the counterpoint of a boy holding his head, creates the sense of intimacy. And you just say, it's impossible that it's unbelievable, which means great. It also means I don't believe you. You're one of the two, right? It's unbelievable. I like it. I like it as a term. Because I like relatability. I don't like believability. I told you, I don't want to deliver a truth that you believe. I want you to make you relate or not. It's very politically, they're very different values, relatability and believability. I'm closing the parenthesis. But you felt this is such a moment of intimacy. Again, it's incredible. But it's your own perception. And I will not answer, I will not pollute your perception with whatever I had to say. I can only tell you that it's a shot that lasted a long time. I can only tell you that I observed things that felt like going inward and others that felt like being there. But put it together, some people might respond like you did. I can assure you some other people respond that, coldly, they were less touched to it. And that's the beauty of the subjective response to a film that, for which you don't need to know my truth. It's what you felt that matters. And, but yes, in that you can believe me. It all emerges from this process that allows people a space, gives people a space and allows them time to go through that mini journey. In that case, it was a discussion about what it means to be a man, basically. And they can go and they can reach, they go through their own inner journey with the degree of introspection and intensity that they choose. And for that moment that I consider successful, and it does touch me, by the way, very much, because I relate. But there are many others who were unsuccessful. And that has to be taken into account when the process is not top-down, where I don't tell them what to do.
So you revealed patience. Patience is also a big part of your method.
Patience, yes, patience. Then some people asked me in the past, not for this film, like patience, the waiting for something to happen, for something to emerge. There's something that signifies something bigger for me. The miracle of observation. People have sometimes they hold their guard up. They don't want to reveal too much of themselves. But then there is a moment. A moment you could call it vulnerability, like we said, or intimacy, or fragility, or relatability, that causes that relatability. And waiting though, some people ask me how to do that. I don't know. I think I think it's a personal preference. I really thrive where things are still. I rejoice in that. I recharge my batteries. I need that. I need the stillness. I need the silences. I need moments where you don't know what happens next. And not knowing what happens next feels so safe. Feels so great. Like, yeah, maybe thinking that you have nothing to do. It's amazing. It's just you can really recharge. You can be who you want to be. Do nothing. The freedom of just being instead of doing. I adore it. I joked before saying I sit there not knowing where I live. I do know why I'm alive. I'm alive just to be, not to do. So sometimes since I had to do a lot of things, what I don't do, I enjoy being, I enjoy stillness and silences more than coffee. And that's saying a lot. And so it suits me, that approach of stillness, of nothingness, of waiting and waiting. It just really suits me. And when I watch films, when I see that factor, the wait, the tedium, I relate. And sometimes I'm really bored. My favorite films sometimes really bore me, like Tarkovsky's Stalker. There are moments now that I can stream that I want to push forward, 10 frames, like, oh my God, I like it so much, it bores me so much, but that's part of the experience. It's one of my favorite films, Stalker by Tarkovsky, and it really never ceases to bore me at times. But it is part of this getting lost somewhere and not knowing if there's even a point in moving forward. Nothing pushes the movie forward sometimes. But that is a state of being that I really appreciate. And boredom I welcome boredom, because boredom means nothing is happening. And when nothing happens, I feel pretty safe.
Here is the question in the first row, second row.
Hello. How do you choose your crew? Do you have a set of people that you work with constantly? Not actors, but the crew. Or do you work with someone you don't know? How do you decide?
So again, I said it before that I follow the teachings of Jean-Luc Godard in that. So I work for the first films, I had people who trusted me, whom I trusted very closely, other people who didn't even know what I was doing. And that scared me too much. So after the first film, I built a crew of trustworthy collaborators, and I think I said in the interview, it's very important to know each other to the fullest and rely on each other, feeling safe. And I shot that until I felt that that is also complacent, that becomes status quo, because then you can move through the motions. And I felt maybe it's time to go back to a situation where you actually don't know what people can give you, want to give you. Because there you need that fear back, that uncertainty back. I said it before, that caused something that I said before. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to say, you guys go direct. So this time I had everybody's new. And there's the highest incidence, that's the number of American crew. Usually I don't work with Americans because Americans have come from a different background, a cinema background, a different way, modus operandi. And they might be a little skeptical about the way a European nutcase operates, and they might see the inefficiency in the process. And I saw that as disturbance, and this time that I changed a lot of things. I work with people I never worked before, Carlos and sound. Sound, yes, and Carlos was the first I see, and now for the first time did the photography. And the rest, people never worked with me. So again, I cannot give you a univocal answer. I can tell you that I did both. I enjoyed the safety for a while of knowing everybody, the predictability of it, until it became safe and became status quo, and I felt the need to press on the reset button and start again and work with. Seek new challenges. No, today I can tell you that working with new people you don't trust is really hard. So, but that doesn't mean that I won't do it again. But it's just really difficult. So, I need to do some more to see whether I want to continue or not. But again, that it depends, right? I think if you were a filmmaker and if you asked me for not just a question, but you wanted to know what's more desirable, In case they are filmmakers, I say it all depends. I think it really depends on the immediate goal, the goals you're setting on a project. Having working from a comfort zone, having people whom you trust, allows you to perhaps spend energies on something else and achieve something that is more controllable. It depends on the resources at your disposal. And the other one it works whether you want to work with the unexpected and take a lot of risks, start risking the project won't go the way you want it to go, which can be very, very stimulating. So it depends when one is at with their career, with the project. They're two different approaches, but they're both valuable. Yeah.
How do you work with your actors? I mean, how you prepare that path of intimacy, like before the filming?
Yeah, I don't do preparation necessarily. What I said before, the constant assessment is the preparation for what's next. I don't prepare anybody from the beginning because I don't know what they need to show me. I need them to make the first move and me be a bouncing board for them. So we start the project. I usually do this for people who have never worked on film, like a lot of these interpreters, these actors. I say this first period of time, we'll call it test, so that I know that they don't have to worry. Test implies something. The test is not, it's not the real finish, the usable footage, the finished product. So I call it test for them. I always use that, but I call it test so they know they can relax. Test means, hello, this is the camera, and camera, this is the character. So let's meet each other. We do something. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to. And let's see how it goes, how it feels. So they know, oh, it's test. I cannot do anything wrong. And I want them to feel the empowerment that comes from the idea of not doing anything wrong. Because I could tell you, if you're an actor, don't worry. Can do anything wrong. Like, it's hard to trust that. But if I tell you it's a test, then you might believe that you're going to do anything wrong. So I need you to be empowered. Once you're empowered, I observe you. And then I'm a bouncing board. I say, I've seen you doing this, saying this, reacting this way, or not doing. Tell me more. Where does that come from? Where that can lead us? Oh, let me tell you my own perspective. It's always very important to make sure that actors, non-professional actors, mirror themselves in you, right? So I bring them my own perspective. When I do that, say that, act like that, usually I end up in this place. And that causes, this emotional and physical state on me. How about you? So, okay, do you want to bring this into the film? Let's continue. So this is how I work. This is prepping. It's just that I don't do it a priori because it's almost like, look, one of the main teachings I gather, and this is not a joke, although we can laugh with it. I gathered it from Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni was a basketball player, superstar in Italy, who played for the Billy Milano, he's an Italian-American, who then became a coach in the United States. Great coach. Mike D'Antoni was a star for me in the 80s, so I went and I followed the NBA, I saw him as a coach. And a big NBA champion once told Mike, like, Coach, can you tell these guys, my teammates, to stop shooting the three-point? You're shooting the three? Like, he's been missing 3 in a row. I say, shh. If I tell them what to do from the get-go, he'll start doubting, second-guessing himself. He'll never shoot those threes. Let him feel that he's the most he can. Let him feel that he's incredible at what he does. Let him gain his own confidence. So I know it's not really strange. If I told you from the beginning, I come with a pedigree. I made films. People have never made it. There's a power struggle there. We're not equal. Even if I play the cool guy, we're not equal. I come over there and I tell you, look, this is how I want you to be. In a way, I'm telling you, this is the space that I have drawn for you. I'm giving you the perimeter. I'm giving you your limitation. Don't worry. I'm empowering you. You start second-guessing yourself. You've never done this. You're second-guessing yourself. And I'm limiting your potential. I want to see you unleash your potential and do something wrong if you had to, because that's what I need. So that teaching is actually something that I adopt on cinema. I'm not going to tell people stop doing something if you feel that you love it. I'm letting you do and see where that leads you. Yeah, that's what I do.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me, for listening to me. I'll be around, and also, thank you.